Dameth moves that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that House File number 153 be recalled from the Committee on Taxes, be given its second and third readings, and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Stearns, the Minority Leader, Representative Dameth, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, this is bringing up House File 153 is to suspend the rules so we could declare an urgency on House File 153. We are on the 26th day of our legislative session. We are entering week 9. We heard a budget forecast this morning that has increased the amount of surplus, but yet as much as we've seen the work done by the majority party so far, we have not seen Social Security tax eliminated. That's what House File 153 would do. And I have to say, I believe that you're going to be voting in favor, green, on suspending those rules, because I have a list of members from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that have supported this, both in your campaigns and since we have been in session, that you are supporting full elimination of the tax on Social Security. Representative Lislegard has made comments. Representative Brand has made comments. Representative Norris has also tweeted to this. Representative Walgamont, Representative Stevenson, and Representative Hewitt all are saying we need to end the tax on Social Security. So members, as we vote to suspend the rules, to declare this urgency, I look forward to a full green vote. And Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call.
Representative Dameth requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion. The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While we may have been in session for 7 weeks, today was the day that we got our actual forecast that we can use to set budget targets. And so now we are in the active part of the session where we're going to be able to work on coming up with a tax bill that will spend what I think this bill is estimated at $1.4 billion. So that doesn't seem to be something that we should do on the fly. It seems like we should be having a full committee hearing and process, and that is why I would urge members to vote no on suspension of the rules so this can go through the committee process. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion. The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the Majority Leader would yield.
He will yield. Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, Majority Leader, you just said that you want to give it a hearing. Can you maybe, since you set a lot of things around here in motion, can you tell us when that might be? Because I know from our side, we'll have a lot of folks coming down to testify in favor of it. I know that many people in my district would love to hear about this. I think one of our members actually brought a person from her district today that would probably relish in the notion of it being given a hearing. So if you would.
Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Nash. I am not the chair of the tax committee, but my broader point is that this is now time for discussion in the committee process where bills like this and other proposals should be going through that process and having a full and fair conversation.
Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members, I think I do support the urgency. I will be voting in favor of the urgency, and here's why. So if you've spent any time in your district, and I know you listen to a lot of people, you see them at the grocery store or at church, or you'll see them at a basketball game or wherever, a lot of the folks who are entering that time where they're going to be drawing Social Security, and those that are a couple of years away making plans, they stop you and they say, Jim, well, they said it to me, but they say, Jim, when is this going to happen? All the majority party, all the election cycle said, oh, we're going to do this. Super important. We're behind this. Well, now we're giving you an opportunity to put your money where your mouth is. And yes, is it an expensive bill? Absolutely. However, we have beat this drum for a lot of years, and it is ridiculous that we are not rushing towards this. And I think that declaring an urgency gives us an opportunity to really focus on what Minnesotans are asking us to do. Now, I have sat in several committees where we've seen literally billions of dollars being spent in bills that they bring forward. And, you know, I have a running tally in my office, but this is some of the money that should be spent, if you will, because what we're doing is we're telling people that are about to be on Social Security or are, that you don't have to have this now taxed twice. So, Madam Speaker, I do support the Dameth motion, and I look forward to a lot of green votes from all of you, because I did spend a fair amount of time door knocking in other districts. And, you know, occasionally I would see your pieces of literature, And wouldn't you know it? What an obscure thing that you all said that you supported this. So here's your opportunity. Thank you.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It is another interesting day in Minnesota history. Not only has our record budget surplus grown from the past couple of years and the past couple of forecasts, once again, it's blowing the top like a gusher, an oil gusher. And it's actually a green oil gusher, but a different green than most people are used to hearing about this session. It's flooding taxpayer dollars that should go back to the taxpayers here in the state of Minnesota. As Representative Nash suggested, and he is right, both Democrats and Republicans campaigned this last season on Social Security tax relief. Never a word about that now that we're in session. And the majority leader was just talking about spending $1.4 billion to do this. Members, let me remind you that we've already spent $1.5 billion on other bills. And that information that we're talking about not only takes into account that $17.5 billion surplus, $17.5 billion of the taxpayers' money that's sitting in the Treasury right now here in the state of Minnesota. I'll wait for the doors to shut there. And that money that rightfully belongs to the taxpayers here in the state of Minnesota. That number of $17.5 billion takes into account the inflation bill that was passed by this body and the majority party about 3 to 4 weeks ago. So that's already factored in. We've already spent, if you want to talk about how much money has already been spent, that's money that's been spent in increases in state spending before the legislature even gets a chance to step up and to weigh in on it, because we've put automatic inflation increases in state spending. But yet we still have a $17.5 billion surplus here in the state of Minnesota. And the taxpayers are wondering when they're going to be seeing something on this. Now, I also have the benefit of sitting on the Pension Commission, and have since I've been here in the legislature. And those individuals are at a 1% COLA. 1% COLA. Our school teachers, our police officers, our state employees, the people who plowed the streets the last week, they can look forward to a 1% COLA increase. What could help these people right here, right now as the retirees is if we dropped Social Security on their benefits. After all, you didn't get a deduction on that in the state of Minnesota or the federal government when you paid your Social Security taxes. But yet, the state of Minnesota sees it very important to continue to tax the people in the state of Minnesota on their Social Security benefits. We have the ability, we have the funds, we have the time, we have the members gathered. Let's show Minnesota that we can keep our promises, both Democrats and Republicans, and vote for the urgency and provide Social Security tax relief here in the state of Minnesota. Crushing inflation has hurt everyone in this room, in this chamber, and in this state. It's time we do the right thing. I support the minority leader's position and ask for everyone to agree and vote green on the roll call to give the people in the state of Minnesota some of their money back in the way of Social Security tax relief, helping our strapped retirees and their ability to be able to survive staying here in the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. A green vote strongly recommended from this member from the Stearns County area. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, let's remember how uncompetitive Minnesota is in this area. We're one of 11 states that still taxes this benefit. And I know our gallery today is filled with students, and I'll bet many of them would really like to see their grandparents stay in the state of Minnesota. They don't want to see them go to Florida or Texas or some other state that doesn't tax that benefit. But that's what we're seeing. I know if I'm getting the emails in my inbox, all of us are. And every week I hear of more people saying this is where they're at. If we don't get rid of this tax, they're 1 foot out the door on the way to another state. Our seniors offer us a rich resource in the state of Minnesota. They are as I said, grandparents. They're the people that can volunteer in schools and in nonprofits. We need to keep them here. Members, please vote green on this motion.
The member from, where'd he go? Where is he? There he is. Representative Backer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support this. I live on that hump, bump, tip, elbow, nose on the western part of Minnesota. I'm the only district that borders both North Dakota and South Dakota. And this is one of the challenges that we see. If we go down from Canada down to Iowa, we no longer have a community larger in Minnesota. And this is one of the reasons we're taxing people out of the state. These individuals have worked hard. I have a constituent that reminds me every single week, it's my father. Have you cut my taxes yet? Okay, talking about Social Security, also electricity, but that's a different conversation. But these individuals have worked hard. And look what inflation, I was on the budget call this morning that they talked about that the state is calculating increases for inflation. These individuals aren't getting increases with inflation. They're getting decrease. This makes sense to support our seniors so at least they have a stronger purchasing power when last year we saw an average of 8% inflation increase. These people aren't opening up their savings and saying, wow, hey, we got a bump because of the automatic inflation increase. They automatically got a decrease. These are hardworking Americans. They're going to North Dakota, South Dakota. We don't want them to do that. I have a commissioner from Traverse County. He's no longer a commissioner. We would have these long conversations on how we're exporting seniors away from Minnesota. So I would recommend a green vote. This is a reasonable, not even reasonable, this makes sense. This is common sense. So thank you, members.
Further discussion to the motion. The member from St. Louis, Representative Listgard.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's very obvious, and everyone knows where I stand on the issue. And I have asked the chair for an opportunity to have this hearing, and we will have this hearing. And this is a very big conversation. There's a lack of understanding across the state. Approximately 54% of all Minnesotans on Social Security, they don't pay a state tax now. You know, and so I think we need to have a serious conversation, all elements of it. I'm not going to support this motion, but I can tell you it'll be very soon that we will be having this wonderful discussion that I support in the Tax Committee. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just heard that, don't worry, we'll hear it soon. Well, let me tell you, Republicans hear that a lot. Don't worry, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. And we hear about that with almost every issue we bring up. Don't worry, we'll get there. This is an important conversation. Well, if it was so important, you'd be having the conversation. But as of yet, we're not hearing Social Security bills. And the majority leader stood at the beginning of this debate and told us, well, we just got the forecast. So it would have been irresponsible to bring this bill forward before now, but somehow it was not irresponsible to pass $1.966 billion of spending out of this chamber so far. This body, the majority party, has already spent almost $2 billion without a forecast. And so this nonsense excuse that somehow we couldn't possibly do a Social Security tax relief for our senior citizens by now is absurd. Frankly, it's bonkers.
Members, order in the chamber.
Because this
Representative New
actually is
Brindley.
really important. This really does matter. But it is bonkers when we're being told, well, we couldn't possibly spend the money to take care of our senior citizens because we didn't have a forecast. We had no problem spending $2 billion on other things. And I will correct the record. You know, I spoke the night that we took up the school meals legislation, and I misspoke, and I redid the math, and actually my family, I'm going to get about a $2,000 annual benefit from the school meals program. Now, while I appreciate your concern and care for me and my children, I don't need it. I don't need that $2,000 that you chose to give my family. $2,000 that I don't need. But I guarantee you, I have talked to a heck of a lot of senior citizens in my district who could sure use that money in Social Security tax relief. And so while we're going to sit here in this chamber and fritter away $2 billion, don't you dare tell us that the reason we can't do Social Security tax relief is because, well, we just didn't have a forecast. We couldn't possibly spend the money. Nonsense. You've been spending money hand over fist. Now spend it on something that matters. Spend it on our senior citizens who need this tax relief. Spend it on our retirees who are leaving our state. We have a net outward migration of citizens. You just don't put it together. We've got a workforce shortage. We are a really low unemployment rate, a high labor force participation rate. We just don't have people. And it's because of policies like this that are driving them out of our state. They are driving retirees out of our state. But don't worry, I know you'll get to it. I know you'll get to it. We'll talk about it sometime. It's nonsense, folks. Like, we have not had an issue come before this chamber with the same level of urgency as Social Security tax relief for our seniors. Inflation is still out of control. Property taxes are out of control. We are driving senior citizens out of this state. I implore you, follow your own rules. You got no problem spending money, so please spare me the excuses. You got no problem spending money. Let's spend it where it counts. Let's spend it on our senior citizens. Let's vote to suspend the rules and take up the Social Security tax relief bill.
I recognize the member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Frankly, every chair of every committee, I believe, was around when we discussed the Social Security tax issue. Frankly, we're here in this beautiful building because people through generations have worked hard in their lives and got Minnesota where we're at. Are we going to forget about them? Oh, you're done working, all you're good for is taxes. No, we owe them for the decades of effort to make Minnesota what we are. And we owe them. They've worked their lives, now they're retired, the consideration that the vast majority of the nation gives them. We care about what you've done in your life, and now we're not going to tax Social Security, which actually was taken out of your paychecks, and it's your money. You already earned it, but we're going to tax it when you get it. You know, my community is what it is because not only when they were working, but the retired members of my community, they volunteer, they help out. They're the voice of reason when you have a tough time and you need someone to talk to. We need to appreciate them because when they leave, we lose the volunteers, but we lose a source of knowledge and support that makes our communities what they are. So well, we don't have time quite yet to talk about. We talked about it before. Every chair was around for that discussion. So it shouldn't be difficult and tough for us to bring it up and speak to it and address it. And oh, by golly, this last weekend I worked on my taxes. I know a lot of retired people probably have been doing that. And they've probably been seeing some surprises. Well, let's do a good surprise for them. Let's stand up for the people that helped make Minnesota what it is, for the people supporting our neighbors and our communities, and vote that Social Security tax bill. Don't wait, because you'll turn around, it'll be the end of May, and oops, we missed it again. They're important to me, and they're important to our communities. So please vote for this.
I recognize the member from Douglas, Representative Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I too rise in support of the suspension of the rules. So if we go through headlines, May 22nd, 2022, the headline from Fox 9 read, Social Security tax eliminated under Minnesota lawmakers' deal. And then in January 12th, 2023, got past the election. Many people campaigned on the eliminating the Social Security tax completely. The headline from January 12th, 2023, last spring, Republican and DFL leaders announced they struck a deal with Governor Tim Walz that included exempting all Social Security benefits from state taxes, but full repeal of Social Security tax in Minnesota a sticking point. It should not be a sticking point. The forecast that came out today is $17.5 billion. When we ended the legislative session last year, May of 2022, we were looking at, I believe, a $12 billion surplus. So that's $5 billion more than what we thought we had in May of 2022. Now, the money does not belong to the government. It is the people's money. This body passed last month $2 million for fiscal year 2024 and $2 million in 2025 that did not go to reducing Social Security tax. It did not go to supporting our seniors in nursing homes. It went to a lawn to legumes program. I would be pretty ashamed myself if I were you. I'd be embarrassed that you're willing to spend tax dollars on flower seeds for lawns, but you're not willing to spend the money on our seniors when it counts. The Social Security tax exemption, maybe you're upset about it, but started under Republican control here in this House. Under then Speaker Representative Kurt Daudt and signed by Governor Mark Dayton. Republicans have been leading on the exemption of Social Security taxes for many years before that. And then magically, Democrats started joining in, and under Chair Marquardt, we passed more exemptions. And then last May, that deal was struck to eliminate all of the Social Security tax. So I don't know what happened between May of 2022 and February 27th, 2023. But when this body can introduce bills to ban water and plastic bottles, I think we can pass bills that benefit our seniors with the elimination of the Social Security tax. So members, I ask that you put away your partisanship, your greed of government money, the people's money, and stand up for our seniors. Thank you.
The member from Freeborn, Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, last week when I got home from St. Paul, going through my mail, I had a check from my lawn service company. I'm thinking, why is my lawn service mailing me in the middle of the winter? Well, they're giving me a refund. I overpaid. By the way, it's a great lawn service, and it's called Great Lawn Service out of Alden if you live in southern Minnesota. They do wonderful work. But I had overpaid, and so they sent me a check for $160-some, I believe it was. And that's what happens when people overpay for a service or a product. And that's what should be happening in Minnesota right now. Taxpayers have overpaid to the point of $17.5 billion. And our seniors, of all people, deserve that refund in the form of eliminating Social Security tax. And then I've heard, well, it didn't go through committee. Well, this is probably one of the most committed out subjects that we can imagine that's gone through committee after committee in prior years. And if it hasn't gone through committee this year, my question is why? There's been a lot of priorities that have gone through committees this year by our majority, and I understand that. That's what the majority does. I believe this is a bipartisan issue. I know it is. There are many people, my colleagues on the other side, that support this. We should be doing this right now. I've seen marijuana go through tons of committees, including my education committee. How many committees has it gone through? I don't know, in the teens. And that comes before our seniors? I don't understand it. Members, please vote green. This is a priority issue. Our seniors deserve that refund. Our taxpayers deserve a ton of refunds in the form of tax relief. So thank you, members.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this effort to suspend the rules and take up this urgency on eliminating the tax on Social Security. Like all of you, I heard this at every door of a senior that I talked to this fall. This is the #1 priorities for seniors across our state, and it's not a partisan issue. I had no idea if they were Republican or Democrat. They want us to eliminate this tax, and they deserve that. Members, as has been said, by a lot of people, we have done other spending this session. We have heard many tax bills in tax committee, which I sit. This has not been brought up. Representative Davids introduced this bill on January 9th. I introduced a similar bill on January 9th, House File 136. And requested hearings right away. These bills have not been heard in tax committee, although we are hearing and getting through a lot of committees, the bill to legalize marijuana, the bill to create a huge payroll tax on employers for the paid family leave program. We are moving a lot of bills in this legislature, members, but we have not done anything to help our seniors, and they need our help. As of last month, inflation overall was up 6.4%. But the price of food was up 10.1%. Energy was up 8.7%, members. Seniors are living on a fixed income. They are so impacted by these rising costs, and they cannot do anything except to forestall the rise of food prices, the rise of energy prices, but their income shrinks every month in the face of this. In addition to the just general inflation on food, which was 10.11%, the rise in prices for food at home, which is a category, was 11.3%. Seniors need our help to just afford their lives on fixed incomes. Members, this is an urgency. That's why we're bringing this to you today. For those of you who thought we had to wait for the forecast, well, now we know. The forecast is here. There's a $17.5 billion surplus. We have the ability to help seniors right away, and it shouldn't have to wait till after marijuana and all these other things we're doing. We need to prioritize seniors. It's not a partisan issue. All seniors want this. I'm going to a town hall in my district. Every time I go to a city council meeting, I've been doing in my district the last few weeks, this is the #1 thing people talk to me. When I send my newsletter every week, talking about all the different bills we're passing, every week seniors write back and they say, why aren't you taking up Social Security? This is what they are asking for, members, and we need to be responsible. So I urge everyone to vote green on the urgency.
The member from Anoka, Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It's no surprise that we live in very, very hyper-partisan times right now. I mean, if you look at over the course of the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever we're in, we've debated robustly and vigorously and with determination most everything that's come to the floor. And that's fine. That's where those debates are actually supposed to occur. But this was one of the issues, one of maybe two, that I heard on the campaign trail over and over again that everybody supported. Democrat, Republican, no difference. Everybody said on their literature, in debates, in forums, and in public speaking engagements with the public that we were going to get this done. That was a promise that we made. And those two things that I heard on the campaign trail over and over again was that, the elimination of the tax on Social Security and the ability to work together again, to try to get over the partisanship, at least to some extent. People are dying for it. They want to know that we can function as a body, that we can work kind of like a marriage. You have to give sometimes, you have to get sometimes, but you have to have concessions. You can't just bully people into believing that there is a one-size-fits-all model for this. We have the solution. It's right here. It's right in front of us. If we vote yes on declaring an urgency and saying we need to get this done to address 42-year highs of consumer price and inflation, then we can show Minnesota that we are able to work together and get things done again. That's why I'll be voting yes for this, and that's why, even though Representative Liz Lagarde, he had exclaimed that there was going to be some movement on this, we've been waiting. We're 9 weeks in. Now's the time. That's why there's an urgency. Let's show that we can get some bipartisan work done. Thank you.
The member from Isanti, Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, I stand in favor of this motion. It's important. Minnesotans have been overtaxed by $17.5 billion. And you divide that by our population, that's over $3,000 per man, woman, and child. We have a huge surplus. Surplus by overtaxing the citizens of Minnesota. Now, we heard talk that we're going to, now that we have budget target, we can start talking numbers. In the Housing Committee, we've almost heard $6 billion of spending. $6 billion. And it'll go way quite a bit over that with the bills that are on schedule for this week. Now, on the campaign trail, just about every single one of us campaigned on repealing the Social Security tax. And it's not just on our seniors. We have many developmentally disabled citizens of this state that are also on Social Security. But if we just look at the seniors, back in 2017, when the Republicans pushed through to repeal part of the Social Security tax, income tax, there was 284,000 seniors at that time. And it only affected 82,000. That left a large percentage still paying income tax on their Social Security. Now with the inflation, it's even worse. Some of them are just trying to figure out if they're going to eat, pay for their medication, pay for the heat in their home. They're struggling. This is one way that we can help. Some have actually thought about moving out of their home and trying to find a place in either assisted living or independent living, but guess what? It's around 18 to 20-month wait to get into one of those facilities. Well, they talked about waiting to get to the deadlines and the forecast. First deadline is March 10th. Was that 11 days away, 12 days? Just 2 weeks. That's 4 committee hearings if you meet twice a week. I'd like to know when we're going to hear this bill if we don't hear it now. This body has already passed over $1.5 billion off the floor of this House. But we had no forecast. We just spent the money. Now is the time to help our seniors and others on that are on Social Security. It's important to them. It's important to us to keep our promises that we made when we were running for campaign, and that's on both sides of the aisle. And also in the corner office of this building, who also campaigned on repealing Social Security tax. I have a bad feeling if we don't do this now, it'll never get done on this biennium. I can tell by the way the people on the other side of the aisle are looking. They're not paying attention. They're busy on their computers and their phones. But this is something we need to do. It's important for the citizens of this state. It's important for our seniors. And it's important for their grandkids that they can be near them and not have to move out of this state. Because we have a negative migration. We're losing more people than are coming into this state. It is time to bring this bill forward, vote to suspend the rules, and get this done, what should have been done years ago.
Donald. You should.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the suspension of rules to bring up a state of emergency. You know, Minnesota is a great state. I love this state. I love it more now that my granddaughter, who's 18 months, is here on this planet and close to home. Spent the night last night. But I don't think, and many folks don't think, that we're staying a great state. And here's my observation in the last 13 years on the House floor. And it started this morning when I drove into Kettlebells. I work out at the gym in Delano. And it's icy, it's cold, it lasts forever. And as I drove into the parking lot in Delano, it's an incline about 20 degrees. I kept on sliding. My Chevy Tahoe slid, and it was going to hit 2 cars. So I thought, well, maybe I can make it in between both of these cars. But I kind of got a big gas guzzler. I don't think I can quite make it. So I did my best to not hit the brakes, because you do that when you panic, but you're not supposed to, folks. Kids, if you're watching, don't hit your brakes when you're sliding. And I slid down and I hit the car, bumper to bumper. Well, thanks be to God, there was no dent, no damage. I think I knocked off some ice on her car and some ice on my car, but certainly worked up a little anxiety there. And then as I drove into the cul-de-sac, I almost hit our mailboxes. And then when I drove into the state office building, up to the gate, you know, you got to take out your wallet or your phone or whatever you got and open the gate. And I did that, but it wasn't quite plowed right, and it was icy, and I darn near hit the gate with my car again. Well, then the second gate, you know, the gate opens up, you drive into the parking lot. That didn't get plowed very well, and I don't hold the folks, good folks here at the Capitol for not doing the job. It was a hell of a storm last week, but I almost hit that gate as well. And it occurred to me, at my age, I thought, why in the Sam heck do I want to stay in this state? I really was thinking, I should just get the hell out of here. I'm a photographer, I can make a living anywhere. All my wife's family's in Florida. They're all from Minnesota, but they got the heck out of here. They're not from here anymore. So, unfortunately, with my business, my photography studio, my kids, my grandkids, and this job here, I'm stuck here. But when I am old enough to get Social Security, and it's a ways away, Representative Newton, it's a ways away, I seriously consider moving. And I don't know if you folks on that side, but I think on this side, I have observed, Madam Speaker, for the last 13 years, I've heard more people say they really are seriously thinking of moving. One, because of the Social Security tax. We haven't got that done. Now, you're right, Representative Listergaard, we did reduce the Social Security tax on thousands of seniors 4 years ago. I voted for that. I know many of you did. Last year, we had another Social Security bill to eliminate it, and we couldn't get the job done. So I don't think the people of Minnesota trust us down here that we can get the job done to eliminate Social Security. I really don't. Do you, Representative Pawlowski? Do you believe that we can get the job done? We couldn't last year when it was a top priority. And we seem to fail Minnesotans over and over again. And the hogwash that we now have the budget forecast that we can pass a bill, that's silliness, because you know we had $17.5 billion in the beginning with, and we've already spent $2 billion. So I'll close this by just stating some facts. And I know you're not going to vote for this at all, but I'll get my point across, and so are Minnesotans if you're listening. Minnesota Chamber of Commerce had just came out with a fact-finding of the business in Minnesota, the climate of Minnesota. We're not so great, folks. Sorry to say. I mean, I think I'm great. I think a lot of you guys here are great. I think Madam Speaker's a great person. But we're not so great, and here's some of the facts to think about before you vote on suspending the rules. The cost of doing business here in Minnesota is very costly. And those who are going to be senior here, raise your hand. In 5 years, raise your hand. 10 years? A couple of years? Oh, yeah, ladies, don't raise your hand. Don't ask. Well, I think you're going to want to keep more of your money because inflation is at actually 12%. They say 7%, but that doesn't count energy and food. Isn't that ridiculous? Think about it. They don't count in energy and food, two of the highest, biggest costs of living, into inflation. So it's actually about 12%. Senior citizens can have another $300 to $1,000 per month in their check tomorrow if we pass it today and if the governor signs it. But here, closing. I don't want to go too long. We got Farm Bureau tonight, great dinner, and we got committee hearings and other important work. But this is more important than any of that stuff. Electricity. Here's how we rank in Minnesota. We tax Social Security on our retirees, okay? We won't bother to even get it done. I don't have faith we'll get it done this year. We didn't last year. Electricity. Minnesota ranks 12th in the nation for the highest cost of electricity. And with your carbon-free by 2040, 100% carbon neutral, that cost will be significantly up. Individual health premium insurance. Minnesota ranks, what do you think, number one? Representative Lilly. What do you think Minnesota ranks for health insurance cost? 19th in the state, in the nation. Workers' compensation premiums. I'm on that committee now, so I hope to have some work that we can get done to lower that. Workmen's compensation, Minnesota ranks 12th in the nation. Unemployment tax rating, 17th. Cost of living, there it is, here's the kicker. Cost of living, 20th. Minnesota ranks 20th. We're one of the highest tax states in the nation. Our corporate tax rate is right under California. And many of the states around us, in closing, I'll just do this in closing. Many of the states around us, Madam Speaker, Iowa, they just went to a flat tax. South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, I said that. Wisconsin, they're all lowering the tax burdens, and they are eliminating, if not already, the Social Security tax. So, Madam Speaker, if we don't declare a state of emergency today and bring this bill up, we will have another 20,000 residents move out of Minnesota. Did you know that? Representative Olson, did you know, I was just in Duluth just this past weekend, great city, by the way, went skiing in Lutsen, wonderful city that is. First time my son was there, he loved it too, but they're taxed too high in Duluth. I forgot what I was going to say. 20,000 Minnesotans left Minnesota in the last couple of years. 20,000. They migrated out. Why do you think that is? Well, it's too cold here, that's why. And the Social Security tax is high, and we're taxed high. So, folks, if you don't want to have more Minnesotans move out of the state of Minnesota, I suggest you, Madam Speaker, rule in favor of the state of emergency, because we are in an emergency, and suspend the rules so we can finally eliminate the Social Security tax. Right, members? Amen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion to the Damath motion. Representative Damath.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as you can tell, members, there is a lot that we hear from our constituents, and they want this work done. I look forward to a bipartisan vote on suspending the rules, and I know things can move very quickly in this chamber, and so it would not take much more time to suspend the rules, declare the urgency, hear the bill, and get it passed tonight. It would be very, very simple to do. But what we have heard, and I'm hoping for a bipartisan vote, but on the off chance it fails, and I'm hoping that's not the case, Madam Speaker, would Representative Gomez yield for a question?
Representative Gomez will yield to a question. Representative Damath.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Gomez, I am hoping for a bipartisan vote that we are going to be able to suspend the rules and take this bill up tonight. On the off chance, the very slim chance that that is not going to happen, we are wondering when the bill might be heard. I'm not sure if any of the elimination of the tax on Social Security bills have been heard. So 2 questions. One, have there been any bills to eliminate the tax on Social Security? Have those been heard in your committee? And if not, when could we expect a bill would be heard?
The member from Hennepin, Representative Gomez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Damath. So, as Chair Lissegard said, he has chief authored House File 300, which is an exemption of Social Security. There are other approaches that have been introduced. My intention, we're hearing the governor's bill this week. My intention is that we're going to hear kind of the way that we did if anybody was in tax committee last term. We heard a few different approaches, including the pension income, including sort of a more slimmed down version that doesn't cost $1.5 billion and doesn't blow a giant hole in our budget. So our intent is to hear House File 300 and possibly a couple of other bills on Social Security in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. But I will let you guys know as soon as I know. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Damath.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Gomez, for that commitment. Again, I am hopeful that we will hear this bill tonight with the suspension of the rules, but the concern of possibly creating a $1.5 billion or $1 million blowing of the budget, I don't think is a valid concern tonight. As you've heard Representative New Brindley bring out the fact that out of this chamber already in just the 26 or 25 days, earlier than today, but in these 25 days, we've already spent $1.966 billion out of this chamber. But I have to tell you, the inflation on that is going to be an additional $1.5 billion. Is that correct? From what we've already spent. So I don't think the concern on spending this to do what our constituents are asking us to do, eliminating the Social Security tax, as we've promised while we were campaigning, as I know a number, 6 members that I have on my list from the DFL side have made this either their #1 priority or recognize the importance of getting this work done. This is something that we can do for Minnesotans. We can do this tonight. We can be fair. We can eliminate the tax on Social Security, and I look forward to a fully or almost fully green board when we take the vote to suspend the rules.
The clerk will take the roll on the motion. Will the clerk please call the names of the members who are voting remotely?
Becker Finn.
Becker Finn votes no.
Becker Finn votes no. Hemmingson Jaeger.
Hemmingson Jaeger, no.
Hemmingson Jaeger, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 64 ayes and 68 nays, the motion does not prevail.